You want to say hello to the internet, Bernie? Say hi, guys. Welcome back to Chill Vibes Only, CVO Wellness. My name's Bernie, and I'm going to tell you some fun things today. Hey guys, welcome back to CVO Wellness, Chill Vibes Only. My name is Allie, and today we are going to be talking about how to combine finances with a partner and some tips and tricks for when you are moving in together with a partner or starting to plan a future with somebody. All right, so I think this topic is super interesting, and it's something that so many people go through, and there's so many different ways to approach it. But I wanted to talk about in today's video how I personally have gone about living with a partner and some tips and tricks for combining finances and planning for the future, and just kind of give some advice about also too what I've learned from my friends and family along the way. Like I said, there isn't one specific way to combine finances, but I do think you can learn from one another, and it's really helpful to share your perspective and see what other people do, because you can kind of take and choose and make a situation that works for both of you and your partner. So, first things first, I think like when you go from living on your own or living with a roommate to living with a partner, there are some key differences. I know for me, especially when I went from living with a roommate to living on my own to living with a partner, I approached finances very differently. I think with roommates, we're used to just splitting everything right down the middle. You try to keep everything very fair. You know, you clean one week, I clean one week. Whereas with a partner, I think that you can approach things with more of an equitable mindset because you are a partnership and you are a team. And I don't think it always works out where if you're treating each other completely the same, that might seem fair, but it will have sometimes downstream or negative effects on your relationship, which is why I think when you're moving in with someone, you want to take more of that equitable approach. And what I mean by equitable is that you might clean every single week, and your partner might be the person who takes out the trash and makes sure that there's groceries in the fridge. And those are two different actions, but they're both contributing to the overall good of the household. And so it becomes fair. It's not necessarily like just because I clean one week, you have to clean one week. It's about figuring out each other's strengths and what you both enjoy doing and don't enjoy doing, and trying to find a balance that's going to work for the both of you so that you feel like you're both contributing to the household and not one person is taking on more than the other, but it's not going to look like a 50-50 split on paper. That being said, let's go over how I would approach moving in with a partner around finances, household responsibilities, and then planning for the future. So if you're watching this video and you're thinking, okay, I'm just about to move in with my partner, or you're currently living with your partner and you're getting into fights, or you're upset, or you feel like it's not fair, or there's just contentiousness in the household because you haven't talked about these things, this is a really great first step because it's going to give you the ability to bring up these conversations with your partner and design a new way that you approach your home that works for the both of you. And I really do want to encourage you to think about starting fresh if you need to. With me and my partner, it was really a big learning experience, and we've tried a bunch of things, and we finally, I feel like, have gotten to a place where it works really well for us, and we figured out a system that works really well for us. And it took just like a lot of trial and error and being open to changing our mind about things and changing the way that we do things. I think when we first moved in together, we approached everything as like that 50-50 mindset, or like you clean one week, I clean one week. We split everything down the middle 50-50. It was all very like roommate-esque. And since then, we've kind of learned how to express what we both need from each other, what we both like to do, what we don't like to do. And we've split up our household a lot more equitably that works for the both of us. So, yeah, first thing I would say if you're thinking about living with a partner, you have to think about how you're going to split the finances. I think that's like one of the first things that you probably want to talk about because it's going to have the biggest impact, obviously, on you and your partner. You don't want to sign a lease for a place that you can't afford, or commit to paying rent that you can't afford, and vice versa. So what I would do first with your partner when you're thinking about moving in together is think about, okay, what is like rent that we feel comfortable that we can afford, and do we feel comfortable splitting that 50-50? So if you, for example, want to live in a place that is a bit more expensive and out of your partner's price range, that's fine, but then you need to be willing to cover that additional percentage. I think it's not fair to ask your partner to pay excessive amounts of rent that they can't afford just because you want to live in a nicer place. So that's how I would approach rent. It's like you can do it if you both agree on a price, then you find something and you split it 50-50. But if you personally want to live somewhere that is out of that other person's price range, that's fine. But you have to then cover the additional cost of that place because it's not fair to put that financial strain on your partner. So now that you've agreed upon rent, you want to start to think about household responsibilities and how you're going to split that. So one thing I've learned that's been really helpful is, like I said, it's not always going to look 50-50 on paper. When me and my partner first moved in together, he would clean one week and then I would clean one week. He would pick something up and then I would pick something up. And it just didn't really work for us because our schedules are different. We have different priorities. There are things that like he doesn't mind doing that really frustrate me, and things that I don't mind doing that really frustrate him. I think you'll hear about this a lot for women, is like that mental load. I felt like I was carrying a lot of the pressure of like thinking about when things needed to be restocked, or making appointments for our dog, or taking our dog out for walks, or just doing more of that like day-to-day stuff because I spent more time in the home and he worked outside of the house a lot more, so he didn't have the same flexibility that I did. So what we agreed upon that was equitable for us is my partner cleans our apartment every single week. It gets done no matter what. I know he's going to clean once a week. And I manage just like the daily tidy up. So I'll vacuum, or I'll wipe down the countertops. I'll take the dog for a walk. He'll obviously join us and take the dog for a walk when he's around. But we find that works really well for us. I also manage just making sure that things are ordered and that we have all the necessities that we need for our house. So, like Costco and stuff like that. And I don't mind ticking those things off and being prepared. It's something that I'm really good at, and I'm good at staying organized. And if I do need his help, like, hey, can you grab, I don't know, batteries from the store? Like, he's happy to pick stuff up and do that. But that's how we split it. So I kind of manage like the mental load of managing the household, and I know that he's going to clean once a week and make sure everything's organized. When it comes to paying our bills, we originally were splitting everything 50-50. So I would pay our hydro bill and our Wi-Fi bill, and he would e-transfer me. We never actually did a joint account. I know a lot of people do joint accounts, and that can be really helpful. So I'll get into that a little bit later on too, when it comes to like looking at each other's finances and opening up a joint account. I truly, truly believe you should always keep your finances separate. You should always have your own bank account, your own money. Your paycheck goes into that account, and then you can choose to move it and allocate it where you want. But what works well for us is, I was tired of him e-transferring me all the time, or having to ask for him to pay like certain bills. So he tends to pay for all of our meals anytime that we go out or do something, and I pay for our hydro and our Wi-Fi bill. And, you know, we go out for dinner a few times a month. And in my opinion, in his opinion, it kind of always comes out in the wash. When it comes to picking up things that we both need around the house, if it's like a bigger Costco order, I will have him transfer me for it. But for the most part, like, it kind of just comes out, and it's not really worth it for us to get out a spreadsheet and track everything, or to have a joint account that we take out of each month, because we still do things a lot separately. We're not a couple who like sits down and has dinner together every night, just because of the way our lives work and our work schedules. But I always feel like with us, it's very equitable. So that works for us, but again, it might not work for you. So what I would recommend doing is thinking about, when you're moving in with your partner, asking, okay, like, how do we want to split the bills? Do we want to do it 50-50? Do we want to put a certain amount in a joint account every month and someone pays it? Who's going to take the responsibility of paying the bills? Maybe the other person then takes the responsibility of taking the trash out. Finding something else that they can do. I wouldn't recommend you splitting each task like one for one. I recommend each owning a certain part of managing your life. So, like, you know, that person has the garbage, like, that you don't think about and you don't worry about, and you manage making sure that the countertops are always clean every single week. I think when each person has their own special thing that they focus on, it just helps, again, make it more equitable. You also can pick and choose to do the things that you really enjoy. I personally really like looking at our finances and making sure everything's in order there. I'm really good at it. So I take on more of that aspect with managing like our monthly money check-ins, whereas my partner's really good at like planning fun activities for us and making sure that we're doing things and going out and about. And I let him kind of take the reins on that. And it just works for us. So I would think about the same thing with your partnership. Like, how do you guys want to manage it, and try to find a way where you're both doing things that you enjoy, and then obviously the things that you both really don't like, figure out a fair way to split that. So then that brings me to money and planning your future. So obviously, if you're getting into a partnership with someone and moving in with them, you're probably thinking about building a future with them. And I think it's so important, especially when you're doing this first step of like taking on a financial responsibility together as moving in, that you understand each other's financial picture and where each other's at. So I would always recommend sitting down with your partner side by side, opening up both of your bank accounts, opening up both of your investment accounts, and putting down on paper like where you're both at, and then thinking about the goals of what you want for the future, both short term and long term. So if you're a couple who wants to, say, go on a trip once a year, like putting aside money every single month so you can save for that trip. If you're a couple that wants to buy a home in a certain amount of time, looking at what a mortgage would look like for that home and how much you have to pay on a monthly basis and starting to put aside money for that. If you want to have kids, looking at your monthly finances and how a kid would impact that and how much it would cost, and factoring that into your spending so you can start to prepare and plan for that. I think having those uncomfortable conversations at the start, but making sure that you have a really clear picture of where both of you are at, helps you plan for the future, because it's not this like gray zone of like, how are we going to figure this out? It's really crystal clear. You can say like, okay, this is a goal of ours. Like, we want to go on a trip that's going to cost us, I don't know, $5,000 every year. So where's that $5,000 coming from? Okay, we're going to put aside this much every single month. Or we're a couple who wants to buy a $800,000 apartment at the end of this year. Okay, our down payment is going to be this and our monthly mortgage payment is going to be that. So let's figure out how we can finesse our finances so that we can make that work, or what we need to get to in order to make that work. I think once you have it all written down on paper and it's very clear to both of you, it actually kind of alleviates the stress because you both know what you're working towards. And then you can have those like monthly money check-ins, or quarterly if you want, maybe monthly, just to see like, okay, I saved this much this month, this is where I'm putting this investment, this is where I'm putting this savings, I bought this big thing for the house, that you got to owe me money for that or whatever. And then quarterly you can kind of take a bigger look at those big picture items that you're working towards, and also at the end of each year as well. And yeah, set goals for one another, hold each other accountable, understand too if there's debts. I think that's a big one that people sometimes feel ashamed about, or they don't know how to talk about with their partner when they're moving in. But understanding like where the debt is and how you can maybe help your partner with that also is super important, because you don't want to be pushing someone towards a financial path that they're not ready for yet, or you just at least want to be aware of it so that you can plan accordingly. Even though it might feel uncomfortable, I do highly recommend doing that, because it gives you a clear picture of like where you both are at and what you want to work together as a partnership. So yeah, back to that. I guess the last thing I'll talk about is joint account versus not joint account. I personally don't have a joint account with my partner. We tried it and it just didn't work well for us. Like I said, we like to kind of just let things come out in the wash. I know like we equally put things in on a monthly basis. It's not worth it for me to be checking like to the exact dollar amount how much he owes me or how much I owe him. But I do know for some couples it's really helpful, because you can put the money in and then spend it. If you're doing groceries together or bigger purchases for the home together, it can be helpful to use that for the couple. One thing I will say though that I had some friends talk about is like, especially in female male relationships, sometimes you can put more money into like food that you don't necessarily eat. And that might not always feel fair after a while, or you find like, oh my gosh, I'm spending so much more money on groceries than I did before just because someone eats more. So those are things that, again, I would just think about in an equitable sense. Like, are there other ways where maybe you spend more money on, home decor for the house that your partner might have not have purchased, and like they're putting money into that. So again, like I really try to not look at it as like a 50-50, everything must be completely even. It's more about like, what kind of life are we building together, and how do we make this life equitable, and like we're both contributing to it in our own way as much as possible. I think that's the better way to look at it, because if not, you kind of tend to resent someone after a while. And if you're doing something that you don't like doing and they really love doing it, why not just let them do it? One more thing I will say when it comes to like those bigger purchases, obviously when you move in with someone, you don't think you're going to break up, you think it's going to last forever, but just having a cohabitation agreement is really important. So saying to someone like, okay, we live together, these are my things, those are your things, these are our things. If we were to break up, like, would we sell our $5,000 couch and split the profit that we made from it? Or understanding like, I brought in this TV and this bed, so if we break up, I'm taking the TV in the bed. I know it's not the most romantic or fun conversations, but they are important conversations. And I think just understanding those rules about who owns what or what you would do with specific items if you were to break up is really helpful as well. And it takes the pressure off the relationship, because I know friends in the past who have not wanted to stay in a relationship, and then it's like thinking about, okay, well, how are we going to manage all this stuff? But if you have those hard conversations early, and and you write it down and you have an agreement about it, it makes it a lot easier to just be happy in the relationship and confident in the relationship, because you don't feel that pressure to stay because of all these unknowns. You can stay because obviously you love them and you want to be with them. So those are just some things I would recommend thinking about if you're moving in with a partner and trying to split finances. Like I said, there's no like right or wrong way. There's no black or white way. It's just what's going to work best for you guys. And it's a lot of trial and error. This video is just to kind of share those tips and tricks with you and give you some advice on, if you are looking to move in with someone, some things to think about that are helpful and things that I found really helpful as I learned to live with somebody. Alrighty, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a big thumbs up if you did and subscribe, because that really helps this channel. And I'll see you for another video soon.